Direct Connection is made by MPT to serve all of our diverse communities and is made possible by the generous support of our members. Thank you. Live from Maryland Public Television, this is Direct Connection with Jeff Salkin.
Good evening, everyone. We're coming to you live from Annapolis tonight for the final night of the 2022 session of the Maryland Legislature. We are live on the lawn of the governor's mansion, joined by the occupant of the mansion, Governor Larry Hogan. Thank you for having us.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me on the show.
You've had a busy day today. You were at the ball game.
It was great. You know, opening day, it was wonderful to see the crowds back and everybody really enjoying themselves once again. Terrific day. I said it's a great day because it's the opening day of the Orioles and the closing day of the legislature. I mean, what could be better?
There's a video going around on Twitter. I don't know if we have permission to put it up at this point, but people can find it.
Sure.
And it shows somebody who looks a lot like the governor of Maryland, wearing an Orioles jacket, appearing to rapidly consume what looks like an adult beverage, maybe a Natty Boh. Not sure it was being chugged. Can you confirm or deny what happened there?
I can confirm. You know, I'm a man of the people, and it was a Natty Boh. It was a 16-ounce Natty Boh, just, you know, even bigger. But people seem to love it. It's, you know, people were going wild, chanting Hogan, Hogan. So, you know, it's been a long time since I've been in, you know, college, but it kind of brought back some of those memories.
Well, if we see you doing that at county fairs in Iowa in a little bit, we'll have some idea what your future is going to be. All right, let's talk about issues. And I'll remind our viewers, if you have a question for the governor, email it to us right now, livequestions@mpt.org. Up and down legislative session, as they all are for you. But you had a couple of wins.
Well, you know, we think that, you know, look, it's been a great 8 years, and we've had a lot of successes throughout all of the sessions, but I think this is probably our most successful one that's wrapping up here today, because the one remaining priority of my administration that I've been talking about and trying to get done for 8 years was the retirement tax cut, and we got that through, a $2 billion tax cut. You know, which was quite an accomplishment with a legislature that's 70% progressive that really didn't want to cut taxes. And so that was a big success. But, you know, we won on redistricting. We had the worst gerrymandered districts in America, and we threw out the maps that the legislature drew, which was a huge success. You know, we didn't win them all, but, you know, I think overall it was a pretty good session.
What's going to happen next on redistricting? So there's a compromise on the congressional map. The legislative map, which is, you know, delegates and senators, your allies are challenging in court. The judge, the finder of fact, rejected the challenge, but the Court of Appeals has yet to rule. What do you expect them to do?
Well, the finder of fact was just doing some background checking. He didn't rule at all and doesn't have the power to rule. He's a retired judge that just gathered the facts. But the Court of Appeals is going to rule this week, and we're anxious to see what the results are. Yeah, I wouldn't call what really happened was a compromise. I mean, the judge threw out the Democratic maps and made them completely redraw them. They look a lot like the citizen maps that we've been trying to get done for quite a while.
Legislature overrode a number of your vetoes this session. Anything stand out for you that you really felt strongly about?
Look, I think that, you know, we obviously disagreed on a couple of those issues at the end, which is why they tried to rush them through before the end of session so they could override the vetoes. They do have more than 70% veto-proof majorities in both houses, so none of it came as a surprise to me. But obviously, we didn't agree with the legislation, which is why we vetoed it, and we're disappointed, but not surprised at all.
Viewer email, this is from Karen, and we thank you for succinct emails. This is 5 words. Are you running for president?
Well, Karen, I'll give you a simple answer. We'll find out after I get done with this current job.
Which is not until next January.
Yeah, I've still got, you know, a lot of people are like, well, the session is over, like it's all done, we're ready to wrap things up. But, you know, the legislature comes in for 90 days at the beginning of the year, but, you know, we have until next January to keep working until they come back next year for their next session. We'll still be here.
You have a couple of bills pending that you were hoping to get through this session that appear to be bottled up at this point concerning crime.
Yep, really only one. So many of our things have been taken care of in other bills. So they did take some action on crime. I'm very happy. Our huge refund the police initiative, we put $500 million more into state and local police. That we did get that passed, which was critically important. They added a lot of the things that we were pushing in our bill that they put into other bills. The two things that we haven't seen yet, I'm still hoping tonight we get judicial transparency, which passed the Senate but not the House yet. I'm hopeful. I think they're still debating that one. The one frustrating piece that we may not get done is the one that actually makes tougher sentences for people that repeatedly shoot people on the streets.
With crime up in Maryland, Baltimore City in particular, why do you think you haven't been able to get that bill through?
It's just mind-boggling to me. I understand differences philosophically on how you go about addressing crime, and we're all working together on the root causes of crime, but we really have to do something about the people that are going to be shot this weekend. And this is a very simple bill that just makes tougher sentences for people that, commit felonies with guns. So the shooters, we got to get them off the streets. And it's something that, somewhere close to 90% of every single demographic group, 90% of the people in Baltimore, 90% of black voters, 90% of self-described progressive Democrats, all agree with our bill, and yet the only ones that seem to disagree are the people in this building right across the street.
Related subject, George writes, why in the world was Hogan not in favor of banning ghost gun parts, whole guns, and anyone involved? They're obviously for criminals. That you let become law without your signature.
Yeah, so I didn't veto that bill. I said that it was a step in the right direction, but we were frustrated that they did not pass the bill about the people pulling the triggers on the ghost guns. So a small number of guns are these ghost guns, what they put together. They send away for parts. They don't have serial numbers. It's not a good thing. We don't want criminals to have those. But they made it their big focus of the session. We're going to do something about ghost guns. Well, what about the people that pull the triggers and kill people with any kind of gun? That's the one they still haven't passed. So it went into law, and I didn't oppose it.
People really want to know. You're extremely popular in the state of Maryland. There's one of the constants of every poll you see is it doesn't move. It's locked in at this point. I don't have a name on this one. Governor, why do you want to be president of the USA, and can you win? Oh, sign Nat.
I've never once ever expressed an interest in being president and never said I did want to be president. A lot of people, I think, because we've been so successful in a really difficult environment in the bluest state in the country, and the fact that I've got the highest approval ratings for 8 straight years, I would say arguably the most successful governor in America. So people are encouraging me. They're concerned about the direction of the country and concerned about the direction of my Republican Party. And so a lot of people are talking about it, but I'm not one of them. I just didn't rule it out when people said, yes or no. And I was like, well, we'll see. When I'm done in January, I'll figure out what I'm going to do with my life. But I care very much about, where we're heading as a country. And, I just didn't rule the idea out. But I never said I wanted to be president.
Let's focus in on the direction of the Republican Party that you mentioned. And obviously, it seems highly divided right now. And you're on Sunday talk shows all the time. What do you think is the path for that schism to heal?
Well, look, I think, quite frankly, both parties have a schism to heal, and both of them are heading in the wrong direction. So the Democratic Party is moving far to the left, where most people are not. Americans don't think the Democratic Party should be going so far to the left. My party seems to be, some of them moving off to the right with crazy conspiracy theories that don't really make any sense. But 70% of the people in America are somewhere in the middle and don't either agree with what the Democratic Party or the Republican Party is doing. I mean, quite frankly, that's why both Joe Biden and Donald Trump are both somewhere around 38% approval rating instead of 79% approval rating.
It's hard to run for president, run for anything in a primary by saying, I'm going to compromise a lot. I'm going to be the purple candidate, because the people who are voting in the primary, they are the true believers.
Well, look, I happen to think that, I'm a big believer in a competitive two-party system. I think it's important to the country, and I think you stand up and fight for the things you really believe in, but not, to just create more divisiveness and dysfunction. Look, I came up being a young guy supporting Ronald Reagan. I was a delegate to both conventions, and, I was a chairman of Youth for Reagan. Reagan was a guy who did exactly that. He brought together what they called Reagan Democrats and independents. He won 49 out of 50 states and then worked together with Tip O'Neill to get things done. And, so I think we're not there today, but people aren't happy with the way Washington is broken. And I think most people kind of like the way we're doing it here in Maryland, where we're willing to reach across the aisle and try to find that middle ground where we can all stand together. I think compromise is not a dirty word and shouldn't be.
Viewer wants to talk about basics here. Local and regional roads are just terrible. Oops. Why does it take so much to keep the roads in repair?
Well, I don't know about the local roads. I can tell you that the state highway system, we repaved the entire state highway system in 8 years. It's something that's never happened before. So we've got almost brand new roads everywhere, and we've moved forward on the top state highway projects and transportation projects in every single jurisdiction in the state. But I think some of the local roads are, still having some issues, which is why we just, took care of a problem that was created during the O'Malley administration, where highway user revenues were stripped away from the local governments, and we just came together with an agreement with the legislature to replenish all of that in our most recent budget. So hopefully the local roads will catch up, but our state roads have never been in better shape.
What's the status of your plans for the Legion Bridge, the Capitol Beltway, and 270?
Well, it's moving down the track. I mean, it's not nearly as fast as I would like, and we've had roadblocks with citizen opposition and people in Montgomery County. Even though 70% of the voters in Montgomery County desperately want these changes, their elected officials have been fighting it. But we reached a historic Beltway Accord with Virginia. We're going to build the American Legion Bridge. It's not going to cost the taxpayers money. It's a tremendous win. It's not going to get done by the time I leave being governor. I am going to open up the new bridge across the Potomac down south on 301, though, that we already got that one done, and the next one will get done because of what we started.
Tell me how you think about what critics call Lexus lanes. So the plan for expanding these roads, it's complicated, public-private partnership, and you're going to wind up with some toll lanes, which you have on the Beltway in Virginia. The tolls can be really high, and you wonder about the lanes where you're not paying a toll, where there's the single mom trying to get to daycare on time.
Yeah, well, they'll be much improved because 40% of the traffic will be off of them, so they won't be sitting in traffic anymore.
Over the long term, does it incentivize the government to keep those lanes kind of busy, to never expand them, because otherwise you don't get anybody in the toll lane?
No, look, it works. We haven't fixed the roads in the Washington area since the 70s, and the Washington Post said this was the most important thing to happen for the Washington metropolitan area since then. And, it's been 50 years. And look, if people that want to pay the toll get off the road and pay the toll, it clears half the traffic, off of the free lanes, and no one that doesn't want to pay a toll doesn't have to, and there's going to be less traffic and more ability to get to work. It's the number one concern of people in that region. You ask, what's the number one issue? Fixing the traffic. And no one's done it for 50 years, and we finally are. And it's overwhelmingly, they say it's controversial, but it's not. It's overwhelmingly popular.
I apologize here. My iPhone skills aren't great, and I don't know why this came in as like an attachment. But it's a good question. Governor, do you believe that offenders familiarize themselves with current laws? Is that why you believe that harsher prison sentences serve as a deterrent? It's an interesting question. Before somebody pulls a trigger, do they know how many years they're risking?
Well, most of the people who are arrested in Baltimore pulling a trigger have already pulled triggers before, and they've already committed violent felonies. So the average person has something like 11 arrests and 3 convictions, and they're still walking the streets shooting people. So it's certainly a deterrent to the people that are behind bars. They're not going to continue to shoot people.
Tell me about the cancer moonshot. We know on the federal level this is happening, and local institutions are involved, and you're doing this on the state level as well.
Well, look, this is something that I had a personal experience with early in my term. I'd just been governor for 5 months, and I came down with pretty aggressive and serious cancer and battled that. The state rallied around me, and I came out of it, with less hair, but stronger than ever. I met so many incredible families, other fellow patients and their families, and saw what they were going through. And we have some of the best cancer institutes in the world right here in Maryland and Baltimore. We have 2 of them with the University of Maryland and Johns Hopkins. But we still can do a lot more. This is a terrible, deadly disease that kills too many people, and they didn't have one over in Prince George's County, where I grew up. And so we just announced last week we're going to build a new world-class cancer center, $67 million, in Prince George's County. It'll be equal to anything in Baltimore, and then both regions will have the same kind of care. But it's also investing in our universities, and the University of Maryland, Johns Hopkins, and just cancer research, treatment, care. And I think it's going to be a major thing that's going to help a whole lot of people and save lives.
I guess we can get a little bit reflective here, nearing the end of your second term. What you did when you got sick, I've always thought was the key to your immovable popularity numbers, because you were out front, and you were out front quickly. And you know, everybody standing here knows somebody who has been through that. And it's not like, you know, people thought maybe there was a sympathy factor in the polls, and I don't think that was it. I think it was like a shared journey. But that's only like within Maryland, among people who saw what happened to you.
You know, I think it's a little bit different than that. I think people saw. I was only governor for 5 months, but you know, before that we had the riots after 89 days.
Eventful first year.
A lot of people. That's why I have 80% approval among black voters in Baltimore City, because of the riots. It had nothing to do with cancer. But I think what it showed, I was. You know, people saw that I was vulnerable, and they saw that I was a regular person, and that I was very transparent. And I think that's something that's missing in politics today. So it wasn't. I don't think people like me because I had cancer or how I dealt with cancer, but I think they got to know me on a personal level, and said he seems like a regular guy that goes through the same problems that the rest of us go through. And you know, I kept fighting through it, and I think people appreciated that.
All right, for problems that the rest of us go through, back to roads. Anna wrote this. What does Governor Hogan think the solution is for the Bay Bridge?
Well, you know, the current Bay Bridge was not built to handle the traffic that's on it now, which is why right after I got out of the hospital with cancer, I launched a study to build a new Bay Bridge, which had never been done. It's going to take, you know, a long time to get that done, but you have to start a very long, involved process, and we're through phase 2 of the NEPA study and making real progress, so that some future governor is going to be able to build a new Bay Bridge thanks to the efforts that we started. But it's, you know, there's no magic solution. There's too much traffic trying to get across the bay, and there's only one place to get across.
It's nice on both sides, and yeah. People going back and forth. Well, what haven't I asked about that's important to you that I can line up some critical questions.
No, I don't want the critical questions. Look. First of all, thank you. I want to thank you for all your coverage of the session. Is, like, you know, more in depth and more on target than anybody. I don't always like all the things that you're talking about, but you're doing a good job reporting it. And I watch State Circle, and I see the things. That's how I find out what's going on sometimes. So I want to thank you for that.
We appreciate the promo.
Plug. You can use that in your commercials. But look, I think we've had a really successful 8 years. And when I ran for governor, I didn't say I'm going to pass a lot of legislation. I said I'm going to turn the state's economy around. We had 43 taxes in a row that crushed. We lost 10,000 businesses and 100,000 jobs. And I said I'm going to do something about that. And I think retirement taxes are too high. We're being taxed to death. We're not pro-business, and we're killing jobs. And we went from 49th out of 50 states to number 6. It was the biggest economic turnaround in America. It's what I promised to do. And I'm really proud that with a great team and a lot of hard work, we actually, you know, it doesn't happen very often in politics, but I think we did exactly what we said we were going to do.
All right, let me press on that a little bit, because you ran as a fiscal conservative on low taxes. There's been a ton of spending in this building over the past couple of weeks. You have a big fat surplus in the Treasury. You have an election year. There's a lot of it going to stadiums. $600 million for the Ravens Stadium, $600 million for the Orioles, a couple $100 million for minor league ballparks, in addition to the $400 million for racetracks. This is all state money. How does that fit with the way you look at governing?
Well, look, first of all, with respect to being, you know, a lot of spending going on, none of those things you're talking about are state spending. Those are all bond referendums. So we're going to float bonds and
who
sell
pays off the bond?
There's no, you know, no tax dollars involved in that. We're not spending money out of the budget on that. But fiscally, I came in, we had a $5.1 billion deficit. As far as the eye could see, it was the worst ever. We now have the largest surplus in state history, and we cut taxes by $4.7 billion, putting money back into people's pockets. And then we spent things on one-time expenditures where we could invest in the future without burdening future generations by just raising the ongoing operating budget. So we put a lot of money in capital improvements, record funding for school construction, record funding for infrastructure improvements. We made a lot of targeted investments. We also have our economy booming with way more revenue than we ever had before. And we're giving some of it back to the taxpayers, and we're putting some of it in the rainy day fund and leaving it in the huge record budget surplus. But some of it we're going to spend on things that are going to make a difference in the state.
It's interesting what you've done to make it easier to hire state workers. It's hard for all sorts of organizations to hire people right now. The economy is strong. You changed the requirements that a lot of these jobs, they had to be a college graduate.
Yeah.
Tell me what went into that.
Well, it's first of all, the job market is really tough, and there's a huge number of people in the state who are not college graduates but have tremendous experience. Some of them are veterans, some of them have gone through maybe a couple of years of college, and some of them have a lot of work experience in the real world, and they were struggling for whatever reason they didn't go to college, but they're extremely talented and have the abilities to do a lot of jobs. And so we were kind of setting an example for other employers to say, hey, take a look at these other kind of non-traditional folks that maybe there are a lot of jobs that you have really talented, capable people that don't really need a bachelor's degree in a particular field. And we found out that in state government, we had thousands and thousands of jobs that right away it said, if you don't have a 4-year degree, don't bother applying. And we thought that many of these jobs could be done really well by somebody that we were overlooking.
We have about 5 minutes. We're getting great questions here. Are there potential Republican opponents to Andy Harris that you would consider supporting? Andy Harris, the lone Republican congressman.
I haven't heard any potential candidates, and I know that Friday is the filing deadline, so my guess is that Andy Harris is going to be the nominee in that district, and that he's likely to be reelected since it's a pretty solid Republican district.
As you watch what's happening in Washington, what's happening in the world, in Eastern Europe, the Ukraine situation, any thoughts on what our country could be doing differently, could have done differently in the past?
Well, look, you hate to second guess in the middle of a crisis situation like this, but I have been, calling on the Biden administration to take more action and to take it faster. So, I think providing the military weapons assistance that Ukraine has been asking for, we're starting to provide some help, but we took a month to do that and figure it out, and we were kind of behind some of the European countries. But I think, if anything, this crisis, Putin has united NATO and united the people in America to say we've got to stand up and fight for freedom and democracy. And they're seeing what's happening and seeing what Zelensky is, the bravery of the Ukrainian people. I think we could do more to help, and I think we should. Obviously, we don't want to get into a situation where we're putting American troops on the ground, but we ought to give them every single bit of help we possibly can.
That conflict has had a lot to do with why prices at the gas pump are up. Yeah. Sylvia wants to know, why not extend the removal of the gas tax?
Well, that's a great idea. I think we should, but we haven't. Legislature decided they didn't want to do that, and they're leaving town tonight. But we were the first state, and for a while the only state in America to do it. And we put $100 million back into the pockets of Marylanders, and I think that was a step in the right direction. Other states are trying to follow that lead and still have not. But we've been calling on the feds to eliminate or temporarily pause the federal gas tax, which would help, and also to increase domestic production, so we're not having these problems, because we shouldn't be beholden to Russia to get our oil.
Peter writes in to say there's not enough information on if recreational marijuana will be a positive or a negative for the state. It looks like that's going to go to referendum. Yeah. How would you vote?
I don't think I would vote for it, but I think that's the right way to do it, is to let the voters decide. But I agree there's not enough information. I did support the medical marijuana, but I don't think recreational makes sense at this time, because we haven't done enough studies, and I think they're going to run into all kinds of problems about driving while drugged, and we've got enough people dying from drunk driving, and there are some issues that have to be addressed. But basically, there was a bill passed that studies they would do if the referendum passed. But I think the voters ought to make that decision rather than my friends in the legislature.
Do you think that referendum and people who may turn out because they want to vote on that issue may play a role in who winds up living in this very nice house behind us.
I'm not sure how many people, their number one issue in the world is smoking pot. I just don't think that's going to determine the election.
All right, here's an email from Janet. What do you propose to do to address the extreme poverty in Allegheny County and all of Western Maryland?
Well, look, I'm now the chairman of the Appalachian Regional Commission. It's a 13-state commission, and they've got unique problems there that we don't have in other parts of the state. It's still, we've created jobs up there. The economy is better than it's ever been, but it's still not where the rest of the state is, and we've got to try to entice more job creators to come up there and put some of those great people in Western Maryland to work. And we're going to have a big 13-state regional Appalachian Commission conference up in Cumberland, and we're going to try to get the best ideas about how to fix some of the problems of Appalachian Maryland.
This will probably be the last question from Barry. As a retired school teacher, here comes a softball. I would love to stay in Maryland. How will your tax break help me?
Well, I hope Barry does stay in Maryland, and that's really why I pushed this whole bill. I've been talking about it for 8 years because people would say to me, I love the state of Maryland. I don't want to leave my kids and grandkids, but I can't afford to stay here. And I wanted to eliminate all retirement taxes, and we didn't quite get that done. But for 85% of the people over 65 who in the retirement income, 85% of them won't pay any taxes. The retired teacher probably won't pay any taxes. Up to $100,000 in retirement income, you won't have to pay taxes. Up to $150,000 in joint income with a married couple, they won't have to pay the taxes. So hopefully Barry will be able to stay.
Very good. Governor Larry Hogan, it's amazing how the temperature changed when the sun went down.
I know. It was beautiful out at the Orioles game.
We'll wrap it up there. We appreciate the time. We really do. And thank you for watching Direct Connection. We're back Friday with State Circle. Have a good night.
This program was made by MPT to serve all of our diverse communities.